Good morning. Good morning. We'll be seeing the common cases which present to common pediatric cases which will present to skin OPD in this particular class. We will be covering the pediatric dermatology under the following headings. One is what is the importance of it? What's the difference between adult and neonatal skin? What is the classification of various conditions which commonly present to pediatric dermatology? What are the adolescent dermatosis? Also, after with a brief note on child abuse as well as the principle of treatment of various conditions of pediatric dermatology. Coming for the importance of pediatric dermatology, approximately 30% of the patients in dermatology practice are children. So most of the times the diagnosis is based on the clinical examination. So early diagnosis and treatment is necessary in order to reduce the disease burden on parents. And good clinical examination and high index of suspicion are mandatory in case of pediatric diseases. Coming for the differences between adult and neonatal skin. So adult skin generally the adult skin is generally will be dry, whereas neonatal skin will be gelatinous. The thickness of adult skin will also be much greater when compared to neonatal skin, almost 2 times. So 2.1 millimeter in for adult skin as well as neonatal skin is 1.2. Then epidermal thickness is also more than 50 micron in case of adult skin. In premature babies, it will be around 20 to 25 micron, and in term units, it will be 40 to 50 micron. And the dermal junction will have a good adhesion in adult skin, and then neonatal skin, it will be having a less cohesion. Dermis is normal in adult skin, whereas neonatal skin will have less collagen and elastic fibers in the dermis. Melanosomes are also normal in adult skin, whereas in neonatal skin, melanosomes will be very few. Hair will be terminal hair as well as vellus hair, whereas in neonatal skin, it will be either lanugo or vellus hairs. There is the permeability and also the absorption of different substances through the skin will be increased in neonatal skin, whereas in adult skin will provide a good resistance as well as barrier for this particular absorption of the external substances. Coming for the classification of various pediatric skin diseases, some skin diseases are physiological; they can happen without due to any underlying disease, and some are acquired, such as infective disorders or infestations, inflammatory dermatosis, some genetic disorders, and also neoplastic disorders. So let's see the common physiological neonatal dermatosis here. These include Wernicke's caseosa, sebaceous hyperplasia, Mongolian spot, physiological scaling, sucking blisters, cutis marmorata, physiological jaundice, malaria, media, neonatal acne, cradle cap, erythema toxicum, neonatal transient neonatal pustulosis. Wernicke's caseosa presents as white, waxy, lipophilic substance covering the newborn skin. It's a physiological thing. So, composition of Wernicke's will be protein, lipids, and water. Its main function is to provide a hydrophobic layer of protection, and it also has antimicrobial as well as antioxidant properties. This is absent if at all the child is born prematurely, or if it is born post that is after 42 weeks. So here we can see slimy layer covering this particular unit. It is nothing but Wernicke's caseosa. So second physiological physiological condition which is seen here will be sebaceous hyperplasia. It will present with small yellow-white papules on the nose, thought to be due to hyperandrogenic state, and commonly it resolves spontaneously. Mongolian spot is generally seen at birth. It can be either single or multiple, slate gray or bluish macules with size ranging from 3 centimeters to 10 centimeters. Predominantly, it presents in the lumbosacral region, but it can also be seen over the shoulders as well as buttocks. Generally, it will fade within first 3 to 4 years of life, and this happens. The Mongolian spot happens because of a delay in migration of the melanocytes from the neural crust to the dermoepidermal junction, and within first 3 to 4 years, this will fade. In the first week of life, in approximately 75% of normal infants, there will be physiological scaling. Initially, it will be seen around the ankles. Later, it can be seen around the hands, feet, and so it can become generalized. The maximum intensity will be seen by 8th day, and it will subside by within 1 month of age. That is 3 to 4 weeks of age. Then sucking blister is nothing but 1 or 2 solitary blisters present, which will be present at birth and seen over the fingertips, hands, and forearm. So this happens because this is caused by vigorous sucking, and the skin basically becomes fragile due to a weak dermoepidermal attachment, and it heals rapidly without any treatment within 2 weeks of life. And whenever you see a sucking blister, you should always consider the differentials of herpes simplex, bullous impetigo, as well as epidermolysis bullosa. Cutis marmorata is nothing but a benign cutaneous vascular lesion. This is characterized by reticulated bluish mottling of the skin. One important thing is it will be accentuated in colder temperatures. It's a physiological variant, commonly seen on trunk and extremities, and no treatment is required. Physiological jaundice is one of physiological phenomenon which is seen in first week of life. Initially, it starts around the face, on the face, around the nose, and if we give phototherapy for physiological jaundice, it can sometimes lead to something known as bronze babies. Malaria are very common in neonates. These are nothing but superficial vesicles because of the obstruction of sweat glands. So, Malaria crystallina, for Malaria crystallina, the obstruction will be at the level of stratum corneum. Following any fever or hot weather, or even after phototherapy, this Malaria crystallina can develop. So, clinically, it appears as tiny clear vesicles seen predominantly over the forehead, neck, and throat. Malaria rubra, which is commonly referred to as prickly heat, happens because of obstruction deeper in the epidermis. So this is seen in hot weather, and non-follicular papules will be seen on an erythematous base. The size will be from anywhere from 1 to 4 millimeter in diameter, and this will be predominantly seen on the trunk, face, and flexures. Usually, it will subside in 2 to 3 days. Malaria pustulosa is nothing but a pustulo-vesicular lesion that later forms a sterile pustule. Malaria profunda happens whenever there is a obstruction at the level of dermoepidermal. So this will lead to leakage of sweat into the lungs and the resultant inflammation which is associated. For any malaria, the advice which refers is to remain in cooler areas, to avoid oppressive clothing, and to keep cold water baths. So treatment, we can also give calamine lotion as well as talcum powder, and if there is secondary infection, we can consider giving a course of antibiotic. Milia are nothing but idiopathic small superficial keratin filled cysts affecting all the age groups. So can occur in newborns as well, and if it happens in newborns, it will resolve spontaneously. Epstein pearls are nothing but milia which are seen on the palate of the newborn, and these are normal variants. Other physiological phenomena which can be seen in neonates include neonatal acne. It is seen in the first 3 months of life, and this happens because of the transplacental transfer of maternal hormones. So it's a non-scarring one, and it resolves spontaneously with the time. So no treatment is required. So, another important physiological disease which is seen in physiological phenomenon which is seen in infants include cradle cap. Cradle cap is nothing but seborrheic dermatitis of the skull. It will present with thick, greasy, adherent scales, predominantly involving the vertex of the infant. This can also be rarely seen over the ears, trunk, and also intertriginous areas. Usually, it begins around the age of 3 months. We should always keep a differential of atopic dermatitis if it happens beyond 6 months. And application of treatment, it doesn't require any particular treatment, just application of oil such as coconut oil for few hours will soften the scales and it will also improve the treatment. If it is very severe, we can also consider using 1% hydrocortisone cream. Erythema toxicum neonatum or ETN is a benign self-limiting idiopathic eruption. So this will be characterized by papules and pustules over a blotchy erythema. This is seen predominantly the first week of infancy and it resolves spontaneously within 1 to 2 weeks. So first week it is seen and resolves in 1 to 2 weeks. Here we can see over an erythematous base there are multiple discrete papules. So this can be present all over the body, but it will be more common over the back and also on the buttocks. Transient neonatal pustular melanosis, on the other hand, is seen within the first day of life, and it's an idiopathic eruption. And mainly, it is seen over the head and neck region, that is over the forehead, chin, neck, and sometimes it can also be seen over the lower back and shins as well. This also doesn't require any treatment. Next common disease which is seen in infants include diaper dermatitis or napkin rash. This is nothing but an irritant dermatitis which is seen in the perineal region of neonates because of the occlusion, friction, and prolonged skin contact with the urine, fecus, as well as the fabrics. This wetness basically will lead to maceration of the skin and it can also lead to secondary infection with candidiasis. Generally, the intertriginous areas are spared here, and differential diagnosis which we should consider here will be candidiasis, seborrheic dermatitis, infantile psoriasis, and also intertriginous. So treatment will be cleansing, and we can also consider giving a milder hydrocortisone, milder steroids such as hydrocortisone cream 2 times per day, and then zinc oxide or Vaseline can be used as barrier creams. So coming for the infantile nevi and childhood dermatosis. So certain common and genetic nevi conditions in infants and children will be discussed here. So one thing is congenital melanocytic nevus. So congenital melanocytic nevus will be present at birth. Approximately 1% of infants are born with congenital melanocytic nevus. We can classify them as small, moderate, or large. Small is when the size is less than 0.5 centimeter, moderate when it is less than 20 centimeter, and large when it is more than 20 centimeter. So approximately 1 in 20,000 births can have a large congenital melanocytic nevus. So giant congenital melanocytic nevus, on the other hand, is when the size of the congenital melanocytic nevus is more than 50 centimeter. So it is also known as bathing trunk nevus. It will present with a verrucous, hairy, nodular lesion having potential to become melanoma at the later age. So treatment of giant melanocytic nevus will be serial surgical excision. And you can see congenital melanocytic nevus almost involving the it's a large congenital melanocytic nevus which is involving the lower half of the abdomen and also extending to the left thigh. So this is a case of linear epidermal nevus. You can see there is a verrucous linear plaque which is pigmented in some areas. seen at the angle of the mandible and the upper part of the neck. These are nothing but hematomas of embryonal ectodermal origin. This is seen at birth or early childhood as a linear raised warty lesion or verrucous lesion, located in predominantly the head and neck region, and sometimes it can also be seen over the trunk and extremities. Treatment will be surgical excision. Treatment can be, since it is not a high risk patient, we can just reassure the patient. If at all if the patient is concerned for cosmetic purposes, we can do surgical excision with grafting, radiotherapy, cryotherapy, and carbon dioxide laser. For lesions which are very small, we can also consider giving retinoids and calcium ointments. So nevus depigmentosus is a well circumcised single hypopigmented or depigmented macule seen at birth. Usually it is stable in size and distribution as well, and predominantly it is located in the trunk and proximal extremities. One important thing is it will have a serrated edges. Nevus animicus on the other hand usually will be congenital, single, or sometimes it can be multiple hypopigmented patches. One important thing is it is blanchable or diastrophy, whereas nevus depigmentosus on the other hand won't be blanchable or diastrophy. So nevus animicus happens due to localized increased vascular response to catecholamines. Becker's nevus will first appear in adolescence community around puberty, and it is more common in males. It will present with an irregular, hyperpigmented, smooth macule, and later it develops coarse hair. Common sites will be around the shoulder, anterior chest, and even scapular region. And this doesn't require any particular treatment. And for cosmetic benefit, we can consider doing pulse dye lasers. Hemangiomas are the common vascular nevi of childhood. Incidence is it is more common in preterm infants with the female predilection beginning at around 1 month of age. One important thing is these lesions will undergo a proliferative phase followed by a stabilization phase, and that is followed by a spontaneous involution phase. The common complications of hemangiomas include ulceration, bleeding, secondary infection, mutilation, scarring, and cosmetic discoloration. Treatment we can use system called corticosteroids, then propranolol, then surgical excision, and even lasers. Here we can see this is a case of strawberry hemangioma, which is seen over the lateral aspect of the nose. And this is a case of strawberry hemangioma seen over the skull. Vascular formations are nothing. Vascular malformations are nothing but stable dilatations of either superficial or deep vasculature. This can be present at birth, or it can be even present at any particular age. Vascular malformations can be either capillary malformations or arterial malformations or lymphatic malformations or venous malformations, or they can be involved 2 or 3 of these components, making them as a mixed vascular malformation. Examples include Salmon patch, Woodbine stain, Stratwelber syndrome, and Klippel-Trenaunay syndrome. So Salmon patch or the stalk bite basically presents in 30 to 40% of the units. It presents as a superficial red or pink flat lesion, predominantly seen over the forehead, upper eyelid, lamellar area, and nape of the neck. Usually it results in 1 year of life. Portwine stain or nevus flavius on the other hand, it will be present at birth, and common sites are face, neck, and mucous membrane. It also will present as a flat pink or red lesion. Then it will be like sharply unilateral in the distribution and may develop nodules with age. And one important thing is Portwine stain will persist for a longer duration of time, and as the age progresses, In adulthood, it becomes darker in color. The complications of Portweinstein include glaucoma and also choroidal angiomas. So treatment, we can use pulse dye laser for the treatment of Portweinstein. So this is the case. This is the child having Portweinstein over the left side of the face. Sturge-Weber syndrome, is nothing but Portweinstein in distribution of the ophthalmic branch of trigeminal. So this Sturge-Weber syndrome can also be associated with seizures, ipsilateral glaucoma, behavioral problems, and mental retardation. This has a characteristic intracranial S-shaped calcification system. Neurofibromatosis is an autosomal dominant condition which has benign growths of peripheral nerve sheaths. So it has 8 distinct clinical types, but more commonly it will be classified as neurofibromatosis type 1 and type 2. It affects the skin, soft tissue, nervous system, bone, and other organs. Classical skin lesions are epithelial and neurofibromatosis. So neurofibromatosis type 1 is also known as non-threatening noxious disease. It has a diagnostic criteria which includes scaphoidal macules, 2 or more neurofibromas, any type, or 1 plexiform neurofibroma, axillary or inguinal freckling, 2 or more Lisch nodules, optical glaucoma, then distinctive osseous lesions, and the first degree relative having a neurofibromatosis 1. So we can see these are the scaphoidal macules, and there are multiple tiny neurofibromas which can be seen in this particular way. Neurofibromatosis type 2, on the other hand, will present most predominantly with acoustic neuromas, bilateral acoustic neuromas, and multiple CNS tumors can be seen as well, and very few scaphoidal macules, few neurofibromas without any axillary freckling or lesion, or Lisch nodules. Juvenile posterior subcapsular cataracts are common in neurofibromatosis type 2, and treatment is a multidisciplinary treatment. From skin side, we can consider surgical excision of the symptomatic lesion and also lasers for the symptomatic lesion. Tuberous sclerosis is also known as epiloia, that is epilepsy, low IQ, and adenomas patient. It is also known as Bone-Wills disease. It has an autosomal dominant inheritance. It has skin lesions such as Ashleaf macules or hypopigmented macules. Along with that, it also has angiofibromas or adenomatosis for the mid-face. Then Sjagren's patch or yellowish brown plaque in the lumbosacral region. Conan tumors are periangular fibromas. It can be associated with seizures and mental retardation as well. Treatment for angiofibromas is with lasers, electrodesiccation, and sometimes even recently we have been using sirolimus for the treatment of topical sirolimus for the treatment of angiofibromas. So this is a case of tuberous sclerosis. We can see multiple skin color to erythematous papules or predominantly in the central part of the face, that is over the malar region, and also on the dorsal of the nose. This is a case of tuberous sclerosis. The lesions of angiofibromas. This is an Ashleaf macule. We can see a lanceolate or a oval-shaped hypopigmented macule over the arm of this patient. So ichthyosis is another group of conditions which are commonly seen in childhood. So these are nothing but inherited disorders of keratinization, and they will be characterized by the accumulation of scales on the skin surface, and also they will be having dry skin. So the scales will have a typical appearance. They will present with the fish-like scales. Most prominently, it can be seen on the trunk, abdomen, buttocks, and also on the leg. Sometimes it can be associated with ectropion, eclabion, nail dystrophies, internal organ cases. The common types of ichthyosis includes ichthyosis vulgaris, which is the most common and probably the least severe variant of ichthyosis. Apart from that, there are extinct severe lamella ichthyosis. You can see that large round to block, uh, thick, thick and this thing, polygonal scales can be seen throughout the follicle. Epidermolysis bullosa is another important inherited bullous disorder which can be seen in childhood. This is characterized by non-inflammatory blister formation at the sites of trauma. This has a variable severity depending on genetic effect. Types include EP simplex, EP junctional, and epidermolysis bullosa dystrophica. Some subtypes, especially the milder epidermolysis bullosa forms, will improve with age. Generally, the autosomal recessive types will have a bad prognosis with severe mucosal, esophageal, mucosal and esophageal involvement. And skin lesions will also later lead to atrophy and scarring, which can be quite debilitating. Treatment will be to prevent the trauma, since it happens mainly in the sites of trauma, and good care. This is a case of epidermolysis bullosa. Here we can see that there are multiple clear fluid filled as well as hemorrhagic bulla, predominantly seen in the trauma sites, that is the dorsum of the hands and around the wrist. Here we can see this is a case of chronic epidermolysis bullosa here, probably a variant of dystrophica, because like you can see that here there is extensive scarring and also fusion of multiple digits in this particular patient. So ectodermal dysplasias are common inherited disorders which can be seen in childhood. There are more than 200 different variants of ectodermal dysplasia. Commonly, it will be X-linked recessive, autosomal, and also X-linked recessive. It is characterized by defects in the hair, that is all the ectodermal structures, that is hair, teeth, nail, and sweat gland ducts. Hypohidrotic ectodermal dysplasia is one of the commonest ectodermal dysplasias, which will present with sparse hair, decreased sweat, and also absent dentition. One important thing is they will have a risk of hyperthermia in case in warm weather because of the occlusion of the sweat. Coming for the various adolescent dermatosis, common adolescent dermatosis include acne, dandruff, striae, pseudoacanthosis nigricans, contact dermatitis to cosmetics and perfumes, artificial jewelry, or even accessories such as metals, and also hyperhidrosis. Dandruff is also known as pityriasis capitis. Pityriasis capitis is the most common condition which affects the scalp. Positive organism is Malassezia species, and it can be mild, moderate, or severe in may or may not be associated with itching. Striae are nothing but stretch marks. These are seen as pinkish white lines around the knees, axilla, outer aspect of the thighs, and lumbosacral region. Whenever there is sudden increase in height or weight, it will cause a rupture of the connective tissue beneath the intact epidermis, leading to stretch marks. Pseudoacanthosis nigricans is nothing but velvety hyperpigmented skin fissures. It's an asymptomatic condition, mostly seen in obese children. Next, coming for the various cutaneous manifestations of child abuse, it includes child abuse includes physical abuse, neglect, as well as sexual exploitation. Common cutaneous manifestations in this case will be bruises, traumatic alopecia, thermal burns. Sometimes even in case of sexual abuse, there can be vaginal tears, penile tears, as well as hematomas in the genital region, and also occurrence of various sexually transmitted infections. So the general principles of skincare in units actually include gentle cleansers are advised rather than using potent soaps. Excessive cleaning, scrubbing, and incomplete rinsing can lead to irritation, so that should be avoided. Shampoos should be isotonic to the tears, and it should be less irritating to the eyes. And shampoo twice a week will control the normal flaking of the scalp, and anything beyond that can lead to irritation. And care of the diaper area should be with gentle cleansing and limiting the use of disposable diapers. Intertriginous area should be kept dry and it should be kept ventilated. So differences in treatment of pediatric and adult patients include: one thing is conservative management is the best here, best in case of pediatric patients. And other than that, surface area of these children, body surface area of children is much more when compared to adults. So the percentage of absorption of topical drugs is low. So we have to try to use lowest effective dose of medications, and do not use treatments which may retard growth or mental development in children, and avoid using the off-label medications as well. This is the case of Helen. This is the case of diabetes. Thank you.